And then they nuked Lucky Pants into the ground. They nuked Rocket Pulses into the ground, which absolutely didn't need to happen.
Guess what? It's Schrodinger's DPS. Like, you did all the damage and you did none of the damage. And I don't know which it is, but that's the way I'm going to go about it.
There's so many people, even people who have thousands of clears of a raid, they will go into a raid and they will try to do as much damage as possible instead of investing effort into helping their teammates or to making sure you clear, and then they wipe. And I'm like, the only reason you know how much damage you did is because you wiped. You know, you wouldn't be singing your own praises if you just cleared the encounter. Destiny players have a tendency, I mean, a lot of video game communities are like this, where like if players lack a full understanding of something, they'll assume if something gets nerfed, it's unusable. If it's buffed, it means it's automatically meta. If something is bugged and not working properly, that means it's automatically unusable. Like, they just immediately jump to the most extreme version of whatever thought that they have.
We got to talk about this because like your name literally like would pop up and be like, well, Aegis says that all fusions are. Now I'm like, well, guess what, brother? I'll talk to Aegis next time I have him on my fucking podcast. How about that? And I'll tell him that I like scatter signal to his face because I don't think he cares. I don't think he cares.
I really don't.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another one-on-one conversation with a fellow Destiny 2 content creator. My name is Sax, and today I have the chance to sit down with returning guest and friend of the show, Aegis. How you doing, man?
I've been good. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, dude. It's been a hot minute. We did cross. It was star-cross. I wouldn't say lovers, but star-cross. We missed each other at GCX, and I was hoping that we'd be able to cross paths, but I had way less time on Saturday. I wasn't at the conference and stuff. I sent you a message. You're like, yeah, I'll be there Saturday. I was hardly there at all. So
yeah, honestly, the guys in my BNB, they woke up so late on all the con days. So I honestly didn't even get that much time there, but I had a good time. You know, I met some people. So hopefully you had a good time too.
I did. Yeah. For the first time, it was nice to come down, and we did a recap episode. One of the more recent podcasts we did. So if anyone wants to hear that, if you've not heard my first experience doing that, but yeah, it was, dude, the vibes were up. It felt good. It didn't really feel like it was completely the end, even though it is, but the Destiny community kind of came out, and that was pretty cool. So
yeah, for sure.
But man, we were just talking before about how I think the last time we discussed and had a conversation, it was all like, it was just before we got any kind of announcement for Monument of Triumph. And it's, we're now 2 months after. So I'm excited to dive in. Let me get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way, and then we'll get into what we got going. Guys, thank you as always for hanging out here on the Sax Talks Games channel. Whether you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, consider leaving a positive review, subscribing, doing all the things, all the positive things, so you don't miss a single episode and you help push the channel forward. Greatly appreciate all the comments we've been getting on Spotify recently. That's been great. So if you'd like to directly support the show, you can do that by becoming a member on YouTube. You can choose from a variety of tiers for various added benefits, and you'll have your name added to the credits at the end of each show. All right. With all that out of the way, I wanted to get your take. I know that you've had the chance to process this whole thing way longer than some guests that I had on. Right after the announcement, Dado and I had been working in the background, and then he came on the show, and that was the rawest reaction because it was like days after.
Wow.
Vibe came on, Llama, and I sent them messages. I was like, hey, if you don't want to do this, they're like, no, we're good. They're consummate professionals. They were like, no, we said we do it. We're doing it. So
yeah, they're champs.
I want to get your take on everything. Maybe you can just like rewind the clock a little bit. How are you feeling with the original announcement? And then we can fast forward back to where we are today, more than 2 months since Monument of Triumph actually released.
Yeah. I mean, when the announcement first happened, I remember I like woke up and I woke up like around the time maybe that the announcement was, but I just like, they're like, you need to see this. Like, I had some people tell me like, you need to see this. And I clicked on the announcement and I read the first few lines, and I was kind of like, wow. I was like, wow, it really, I don't know. It's kind of weird because like, I kind of assumed that this would happen eventually. What would happen with the Edge of Fate and the numbers and Renegades and, things not going that well. But the language they were using to communicate what was going on really made it seem like, hey, I know this is bad, but like, we're going to stick it out for a bit. I knew this was coming. And I honestly thought maybe it would even happen earlier, but the language that they kept using to communicate with us, it's like the whole studio was just like, yeah, no, everything's fine. Like, we're going to keep going with things. So it was kind of shocking, honestly, that I just woke up one morning and I was like, oh, I mean, I guess this is happening. And they're like, yeah, this is just the end of the the end of this chapter, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. But it's nice. It's nice, the kind of outpouring of, many people have come back to the game now. Of course, as I'm sure, even Dado and others that you interviewed, very in close proximity to that time, they probably also noticed the same thing. There was like a lot of people who came back to the game and they're like, wow, this game actually has a lot of stuff that has been released while I was gone. Sure. And it's actually quite enjoyable. So, and there's still actually, if I'm not mistaken, like a fairly decent amount of people playing the game.
Yeah.
So, if you include console and all that, there's like still like a fair population in the game. And so I hope, D1 obviously still has its kind of hardcore. There's like a couple people that still play, on and off, but
yeah.
I really hope D2, especially given that it's like a, multi-platform and then it's a much more modern kind of game, that a lot of people still continue to play D2, and that'll be really fun. And, a couple months later, even still down the line, I think D2's not in the worst state. And I wouldn't say like we've learned anything that's like crazy new or novel or super impactful that would change my judgment on this whole kind of matter. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely been still a bit shocking. Yeah, it's still definitely a bit shocking, but I've kind of learned to live with it. And to be honest with you, I think I've said this before, maybe not like directly to you, but I was planning on kind of like, slowing the stream of D2 stuff and kind of leaving the space around now anyway. So it's kind of nice that this kind of panned out for me. So it's kind of a good excuse to kind of like get out of D2 and kind of content creation. But definitely an interesting time for all D2 fans out there.
Yeah. So I've had this conversation with Llama. G Miners came on the podcast, and he actually asked just me and Llama straight up after the announcement. He's like, do you guys care about any game enough to actually want to create stuff for it? And I didn't have a good question for it. So I guess I'll ask you, do you kind of what you were just saying right there? Like, is there any other game that you think could kind of draw your attention? You're like, okay, I'm interested, or is this kind of, you're like, I'm just going to let a good thing be a good thing?
There's certainly games that I like could invest time into and become like, pretty good at them and maybe like make content for them. But I don't think it would be healthy for me to find another game and invest as much time into that game as I did for D2. I think I'm kind of out of that phase of my life.
Sure.
Because for reference, I've been playing D2 for, I want to say it's been 5 years, around 5 years now. And in my first, I think like 3.5 or 4 years of playing, I sank like 18,000 hours into the game, which is like, that's like an insane, that's like over full-time job hours on a lot of days, which is like, I can't do that for another game. It's just not something I should do. It's not good for me. Certainly there are other games that, I'd love to play. And if some of my friends are interested in me, streaming or something like that, like I'd stream them, but it would be a very casual thing. I don't think I would, it just would not be a good idea for me to go crazy like I did on D2 with another game. And
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it had its time though.
Yeah, I think there's something nice about being able to recognize, it's kind of like professional athletes, which I don't know if you care about sports in any capacity, but like hearing LeBron's going to, like, he's made this trip all around and all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to Philly and chase another ring for 2 years. It's like, brother, you're good. Like, you don't have to keep doing this
now, bro.
to yourself.
Like,
you don't have, we trust, like, I don't know what you think you're chasing, but it's cool. Like, your family lives in LA now. You don't have to go move away from them across the entire world. So anyways, I say that to say, like, there's something about knowing inside of yourself. And this is not to say anything against any creator that's like, hey, I want to continue down the content line. I want to pivot. I want to do these things, because I'm trying to do the same thing in some capacities, but I am finding a sense of closure, right? Like, it's very rare that life hands you like the cleanest end, you know what I mean? Like to something when you're like, hey, I know that this isn't the greatest for me, or I know this isn't, I don't know. It's just like when you have a chance to step away, and this is one that for some people, I could see them doing that. So, but with all that, I've been really, really enjoying all of just the stream of content, like this final update content you've been putting out. Also, it seems like there's been a little bit of like a loosening, a little bit like your recent thumbnail for like the attrition orbs video was cracking me up. just like having fun with it.
Yeah.
And kind of doing that. But let me ask you this, like, as we start to kind of shift the conversation towards the actual sandbox and the analysis of it, like, how did the finality of this sandbox change your approach to it at all? Or was it more of like a business as usual and we're just going to like buckle down?
That's a good question. I mean, yeah, the finality of the sandbox definitely, yeah, it changed, I guess, the seriousness of it a little bit, because I really just wanted to handle it with more care. Like, a lot of people are asking me all the time, like, when is your damage rotation ranking coming out? You know,
Sure.
And I could be working a little harder, but like, you know, I have some stuff going on and I've moved a couple times recently. And of course we had GCX and all that, but I'm definitely going to buckle down and like start, you know, making content a lot more and try to finish out my projects. But definitely, because it's the final sandbox, I have wanted to treat things with, you know, additional layer of care. Because, you know, of course I can revisit them and I can tweak things, but it is the final sandbox. And a lot of the time in previous seasons, I was definitely like, this is probably going to change next season, so I'm not going to account for this. Or famously, I tend to not account for artifact mods a lot of the time in my older damage rankings. But now I'm definitely going to, because, you know, there's no excuse. You know, it's not like they're going to go next season. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed some things in terms of how I approach testing and the rigor of it all, but it's not too much, you know, it's not too much. For the most part, it's still like, you know, this is just a sandbox. It's definitely a crazy sandbox. There's definitely a lot of stuff going on, but it's still a sandbox, you know, it's not like anything super extraordinary. So definitely a little bit more detail, but you know, the process is mostly the same.
With the discussion on the artifacts, I'd like to talk about that a little bit, because that was one of the most jarring things for me. And I thought it was so many of the solutions or the changes they made in this final update, they were like, not only were they good quality of life updates, but they were actually like very elegant solutions. Like, sometimes Bungie historically, it feels like they roll something out and it's like rough around the edges, and then it takes a season or two for them to be like, all right, no, we figured out what we want this to be. And I don't know if that's just because they had the 3-month delay, right? Like, outside of Renegades and pushing into this, and then they just had like a clear head on what they were going for, or I don't know. There's been mixed information even on like what teams internally knew, like with the delay, if they were working on the next expansion or whatever. But like how they completely shifted and overhauled the artifact system, how it lays out, you know, the more like the point system instead of the columns and all of that. It was very interesting. And then also obviously the choosing of the different artifacts. Not only like the copy, it wasn't just a straight up copy and paste. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, it looks like they went back and they actually tweaked individual mods on those old artifacts that came back, right?
They did, yeah.
So that was like a very elegant thing too, because they're like, all right, we don't want this to be, it was cool if this was busted for a 3-month time period, right? Like, just that it can be that way, but like knowing that it's going to be forever. So I want to ask you, like, in what you're seeing, I know you're still working on some projects, but like, how impactful is it that we have access to all these artifacts like at the same time, like being able to swap between them?
It's definitely super cool that you can apply artifact mods to specific loadouts now. I thought that was mind-boggling of a change, because first of all, I didn't even know that if that was like possible for them to do. So the fact that they actually implemented it is, you know, already props to them. But of course, you know, there was a philosophy inside Bungie that was like, you know, not swap. And, you know, we don't want players to be able to like micro customize every moment of an encounter and just like ignore some build crafting limitations or something like that. So I'm very surprised that this is a complete counter swing in the opposite direction. I've talked about this before, kind of like on stream, but like the fact that we can literally change from limit prig to like elemental supercharger to like, you know, arc compounding to Argent Ordnance to Argent Quiver, like literally at the click of a button in the middle of an encounter is nuts. It obviously opens build crafting windows that are crazy, because there's no punishment for swapping artifact mods. It's not like, you know, fragments and, you know, a subclass aspect where you lose all your abilities. You can literally, like, some of these artifact mods are very impactful, right? So you can change, you know, what weapon you're doing DPS with. You know, you can change whether you're boosting your super damage or your weapon damage or whatever it is. Like, it's really crazy. So I think it's definitely changed a lot of things. I don't think it's insanely impactful. It's not like sandbox defining or anything like that, because at the same time, you know, you can only have one artifact on at a time. You still have to swap between them, of course. It's not like you have an expanded artifact where you can run 7 like third row mods or something from all the different artifacts. So you still have to.
Well, we did technically get a little bit of that.
Yeah. We did have that one moment. Yeah. But you know, obviously the intention is, you know, you still have to like select between artifacts. So I think it's super cool. It's opened a lot of, like you mentioned, you know, there's it seems like the Bungie devs knowing that this would be kind of like the final iteration of D2 that they worked on, definitely put a little bit more care into being like, yo, this is the final version. So we want to make sure things are as open and as balanced. Well, not balanced, but as open and as fun as we can make them. And, you know, on the subject of balance, honestly, it hasn't even been balanced that poorly. I mean, people will argue and they'll have their little, you know, disagreements over things, but this is certainly not the worst state to leave the game in, like meta-wise.
Sure.
You know, of course, you know, there's warlocks and titans complaining that hunters are obviously, you know, the best class when it comes to DPS and stuff like that. But, you know, still overall, the sandbox is, I would say, there's like a fair variety of options that you can use, and they're all going to be like pretty, you know, pretty powerful. It's not like they, you know, difficulty crept certain aspects of the game where like, you know, you need to be doing insane amounts of damage to keep up. So, you know, certainly, you know, no matter what level of D2 player you are, no matter what kind of loadout you like using, there's something for you in the sandbox. So I think that was kind of nice of the devs to kind of, you know, curate the sandbox in that way, especially, you know, obviously with all these artifacts, it certainly helps with that as well.
Yeah. In another aspect of the game that you're far more like intimately knowledgeable than the vast majority, like what kind of impact has this actually had on speed running in low mins? Because like the artifact could shape those runs season to season, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, I would say it's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that, because a lot of more casual speedrunners or people who are like newer to speedrunning, we get questions all the time like, oh, I saw you guys kill XY boss in XY Raider dungeon, and you guys killed it so fast using this artifact mod. Is there going to be a category split, or is this time even going to be beatable next season? And the thing is, you know, a lot of the time the artifact mods, when it comes to speedrunning, it affects boss damage specifically. And there's always something better on the next season. There's always something like better, different, that can either do the same thing as the previous season, or maybe there's going to be a 1 season break and the season after that, there's going to be something even more powerful. So generally speaking, artifact mods don't have as big of an impact on speedrunning as a lot of people think. There's some like small things which can definitely be cool, and it's definitely increased the amount of time it takes for me to make speedrunning loadouts, because as a speedrunner, when you have a loadout, you know, selection that you're going to be clicking hundreds and hundreds of times over the course of running maybe a raid or something, like let's say we're speedrunning Last Wish, right? Every day when we speedrun Last Wish and we do attempts over and over, I'm probably clicking my entrance loadout, you know, 80, 90 times or something like that, right? So you want the loadout to be good. And so if you want the loadout to be perfect, then, you know, that kind of implies, oh, I should probably pick the right artifact. And then you're looking through the artifact and you have a whole other menu of options. And even though it's not high impact, it definitely has increased the amount of time that it takes for me to make each loadout. Because I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to be ad clearing on this loadout and I have tessellation on. Oh, maybe I should run shield crush so I get more grenade gen. Or maybe I should run, you know, particle reconstruction on this one, even though I'm not even using a fusion for damage. Whereas like, you know, for a typical player, like completely, you would run your damage artifact on all of your loadouts maybe if you were lazy, right? So it has impacted some things, right? And it's definitely, there are moments in speedrunning where it's like, oh, it's super nice quality of life to just have this other artifact that I can run during like roam, during mechanics, and I can just make more ammo, or, you know, my ad clear is just so much nicer. And that's definitely helpful. So, and I'm sure there's other people out there who are not speedrunners necessarily, or even low manners, who are like-minded, and they just like, man, I really want to micro optimize every loadout or every moment that I spend, you know, using this build in an encounter, and having different artifacts just helps you do that. So, you know, it's definitely nice for, you know, regardless of whether you're a speedrunner or not.
Which artifact, in your opinion, like if someone was like, I get stun locked by looking at all of these, are there standout artifacts that, and I know you have a dedicated video that dives deep into everything, but just for any listeners who have not caught that, like what are the ones that have really risen to the top for you and kind of stand up as like the general play? Like, hey, I'm not looking necessarily to optimize every little thing, but like these are, you know, this is where you need to start.
If you're just doing, so the thing is, a lot of artifacts, you kind of just pick them because they have a specific boss damage boosting mod, like Limit Break or Argent Ordnance or Argent Quiver. But if you're just looking for general play, I think NPA Repulsion Regulator is pretty good. And I think if you're running Praxig, you can run like Encrypted Data Disk, for example. And then I think Tablet of Ruin is really, really great. If you're running Stasis, like Slayer Baron, Apothecary Satchel is really good. But those are the main ones. Honestly, all the artifacts, for the most part, have some use. But I would say some of them reinforce already very strong, you know, segments of the sandbox, which would be specifically, I would say, Tablet of Ruin and NPA Repulsion Regulator. Those are really, really good with like Void Strand Arc. And so, yeah, if you're just looking to like run around with like a pretty powerful weapon, like Choir or like Dead Messenger or like Praxic Blade or something like that, you can honestly just slap on one of those and you'll probably be good. You can just pick artifact mods that sound like they're good and they're probably going to be good and helpful. So those are pretty strong.
Yeah. Also, I had a segment in here. I was going to talk about the exotic ranking, but I will just shout out just briefly here. Loving that Choir of One ended up at the top, aside from the utility of Tractor. We all know how good Tractor is, but I love that Choir is up there. It warmed my heart so much to do that. What went into briefly, like what went into your testing? Like, all exotic weapons are so different. Like, did you try to find the most optimal thing for every exotic weapon, or was it like, did you use like a static baseline? Like, what did that test look like?
I mean, making an exotic weapon tier list is like insanely difficult because every exotic weapon is like trying to do something different for the most part. I mean, there's, some of them that are kind of similar, but a lot of them are trying to do very exotic things. They're exotic weapons. Tier listing legendary weapons is very easy because, auto rifles are all auto rifles for the most part, right? They're just auto rifles. But yeah, exotic weapons, the way I tended to do it is, there's a bunch of ways you can approach this. I think the way that I approached it is like one of the easier ways to like make it more quantity based. What I did was I had each tier represent the likelihood or the overall viability, like usage frequency tiers. I'll call them usage frequency tiers. So like Choir, for example, you would take that into a lot of endgame content and it would be very good in a lot of that endgame content. So it would be high tier. Whereas a weapon like Turncoat is not as optimal for most endgame scenarios. It obviously has like the swap bug that you can do that increases your explosive damage by a lot. But that's not something you're going to do in like an LFG fire team for the most part. And that's certainly not something you're going to do in like, I don't know, a conquest or like some sort of ultimate level difficulty content. And so it's basically like, how good is this weapon when it's at its best in optimized endgame play? And overall, how often would you use this weapon across endgame scenarios? And then that's basically it. Those are the two main questions. In terms of the categories, I had like 4 ranking kind of categories. I think it was like challenge content. I think it was roam content. So roam content is specifically like super underlight, like GM, Vanguard alerts, conquest, that sort of thing. There's speedrunning. And then I think there was DPS, like overall fire team DPS. So those are kind of like the 4 big aspects that are individually separate categories where you would look at exotic weapons in endgame content. Of course, there's some people who would argue that like certain aspects of endgame content are maybe more valuable than others. I tried to weight them kind of equally. People kind of say that I'm more like speedrun biased, I suppose, but I tried to weight them all kind of equally and fairly. But obviously, everyone has some bias and it's very difficult to make like a perfectly balanced exotic weapons tier list. But, I tried my best.
We're going to touch on trying our best with the list here in a little bit because I have an interesting conversation for you. But I wanted to talk a little more broadly now about like the sandbox in general, right? So you touched on it earlier when we're talking about chasing balance. I like that there's so many layers to the word balance, right? Like talking about like, okay, we have this whole like this set of tools we can play with, and then we're trying to drop like new and better and adjusted and buffed abilities, especially after say Edge of Fate's release. Bungie took that stance where they were like, hey, we're not nerfing stuff, we're buffing stuff. And I know they did a little bit when we got into Monument of Triumph, but like not nearly as many as I thought we were going to catch nerf wise, like to even things out. And so this idea of balancing it and always chasing it down and then finding this final like resting place for it. I have heard a lot of people, I've had people come into my chat. I've had people that I've just talked to one-on-one saying like, this is the best PvE sandbox we've ever received. I believe it. I believe it's the broadest, right? Like there's the most options, the most lanes. And maybe for most people that does match that, but I wanted to kind of pitch that to you. Do you agree with that?
That's a hard question. Yeah, I would say maybe. I think Bungie was definitely moving in the correct direction over the past like 1 or 2 years. For example, making Strand Warlock a lot more viable. They just made like a bunch of different subclasses just went like Solar Hunter. People just did not play Solar Hunter when Pris Hunter came out. And now a lot of people are, right? Like Blade Barrage is like a lot more relevant as a damage super. So I think they started growing, or maybe they started highlighting people more in the studio that have a better understanding of what creates a more balanced sandbox. It's certainly not in the best state, and I know they did say that they don't want to nerf things unless it's like an emergency because they want players to just kind of enjoy things as they are. And then they nuked Lucky Pants into the ground. They nuked Rocket Pulses into the ground, which absolutely didn't need to happen. And And then they nerfed like crossbow damage with Mobius Quiver, for example. So they
wait. Did you say you don't think rocket pulses needed to happen? Or
some of the nerfs needed to happen. The ammo economy nerfs, I would agree with. The boss damage nerfs never needed to happen because rocket pulses could be in their pre-boss damage nerf state right now, and they would not be meta with what's currently in the sandbox. Like we have over power crept like rocket pulses in terms of damage by leaps and bounds. Rocket pulses were good for a couple things. Number one is their total damage was really good for the phases that a lot of bosses tend to have. Like you would run out of ammo right when the boss phase ended. They were good for super gen. You could get like 2 or 3 supers off a phase with them. And then they paired well with like Parasite. So they were kind of the perfect storm for that kind of meta. And of course they were also very like ammo efficient and good for just clearing ads as well. You could just run like 2 rocket pulses. I mean, you still can. It takes more effort, but people would just run like 2 rocket pulses and just run around and encounter with like Parasite. So they were kind of just too easy and too good for that. But for boss damage specifically, right now with the super gen nerfs, with the options that we have available to us right now that are so powerful in the heavy slot, like the heavy sniper, where you just don't even need special ammo. Like you don't even need to worry about backup special DPS or anything like that. I think pre-nerf rocket pulses would be totally fine in the sandbox. I don't even think people would opt to use pre-nerf rocket pulses over something like a cascade threat level with kinetic synthesis with Parasite, for example. So it is, I don't know. People are very against rocket pulses because, they made the game very boring. But you have to understand that the game was boring as a result of a bunch of environmental factors that rocket pulses were at the pinnacle of. So, certainly like rocket pulses, the ammo economy nerf, I can agree with, like I said, because, just being able to run around with a weapon that does like, for reference, rocket pulses, like their ad clear score is like a metric that I use. It's like a little formula to calculate how effective a weapon is at dealing with ads, basically. Rocket pulses, their ad clear score is like 2.5 times higher than like their general competitors, which are like the top end of legendary primaries or like even the bottom end of legendary specials. And so it's like not really balanced for you to be able to run around with that and just have no care, no investment at all into ammo and just be like completely fine, pick up an insane amount per brick. And these days, if you want to run around with Rocket Pulse and just be killing ads constantly, you kind of had to play a lot more mindfully, I would say, actually. So I think that was fair. But in terms of boss damage, like I mentioned, yeah, it's not as necessary for sure. And then going back to your original question, because I know we've looped around a little bit here.
Sure.
But going back to your original question, I think the sandbox it's in a pretty good state. I think it's about as good as we could have asked for. Obviously, there's obviously Titans out there who are probably, complaining that, when the damage rotation ranking comes out, and I know other creators have touched on this as well, Titan is looking very behind the curve. Sure. But that kind of curve only matters if you're looking at a spreadsheet. If you're just playing the game and you're just like trying to kill bosses and you're on Titan, we're not in like year 4. In year 4, there were literally LFG posts being put up that are like, if you're on a hunter, we're kicking you. That we've never like stooped to those lows since then. Yeah. And obviously people were you could argue people were like a bit more extremist back then and it was kind of a trend to do something like that. But these days, it's like, you can be on Titan and like clear anything, you can clear anything on Titan. So it's the sandbox is fine, I would say, especially if you're like the average Destiny player, not a 1%er like this. It's totally great.
I mean, that's awesome to hear. Obviously Titan's my main there. I don't, here's what I like to say. If you kill the boss, at least if it's not the final boss, but like you like saying like, okay, we're running full Insurrection Pantheon, and I'll have people like that I'm helping through, or I'll have people that are getting in there. And the only times you see the damage numbers are when you fail, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, guess what? We all failed. Like no matter who had the highest damage, we all failed. We didn't kill the boss. So that's why we're seeing it. And guess what happens? If we kill the boss, we, even though I feel like Bungie could have given us a way to see the damage numbers or whatever on a successful kill, we don't see them. And I'm like, so guess what? It's Schrodinger's DPS. Like you did all the damage and you did none of the damage. And I don't know which it is, but that's the way I'm going to go about it.
You know what's super funny? I had someone message me recently, actually, or we were talking about something like this. And it's really funny because there's so many people, even people who have thousands of clears of a raid, they will go into a raid and they will try to do as much damage as possible. And instead of, investing effort into helping their teammates or to making sure you clear, they invest effort into making their damage numbers as high as possible. And then they wipe. And I'm like, the only reason you know how much damage you did is because you wiped, You wouldn't be singing your own praises if you just cleared the encounter. So it's actually crazy because like players with tons of experience still fall to the same trap where it's like, do you really need to invest that much effort into like making your damage numbers as high as possible, often even at the expense of your teammates, right? Because some high damage strategies require you essentially to either steal kills from your teammates or require you to, engage in some sort of play style that makes the boss behave, differently or something like that. So, is it really worth the cost? And, some people, even with thousands of clears, and they should know better, they should know how to, clear an encounter efficiently and make sure that their teammates are, all putting in the right amount of work to get the encounter done. Some people, they still fall for the same trap, so you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
It ties right back into our conversation we had last time, like the LFG conversation that we discussed. And the other thing that plays into it is, oftentimes it's when you take an encounter from a 1 phase to a 2 phase to a 3 phase, because of what you were saying, like you're not helping your teammates optimize. So you're the only one, but you're going to run out of ammo. You're going to run out of, use your super, these types of things. A lot of bosses, they just fall over so easy at this point where you're not typically extending, or if you just have a couple of people who are really optimized. But yeah, anytime I see that, like extraordinarily high damage number compared to everyone else, I'm like, I understand what happened there. I think there was a time in the game where it's like, oh my God, look at this, like very flashy. And I think for those people who are trying to get clears, and if you're going from the place of helping people, there's a level where it's like, okay, we get it. Like, it's cool. What buttons to click at the right time, but what's this look like? So, with the sandbox there, I know, obviously, you discussed a couple of things that did get nerfed, but there's also some things that have been bugged, or I guess I want to ask you, like, what are some of the things, like you mentioned one earlier, I'm forgetting off the top of my head. It was you were talking about switching back and forth or being able to increase explosive damage with Turncoat. Is there anything else that's bugged or working improperly that stands out to you in the sandbox right now?
It's mostly just Turncoat bug. There is a bug right now. Are you familiar with, like, a couple of years ago, there was a bug where you could swap between Horseman and a Slug. And if you came out of your inventory, you would shoot Horseman and every pellet of your Horseman would do Slug damage. Yeah. So there is a bug right now where you can kind of do that with duality. And I'm going to word my words carefully here, because you can technically do this through network manipulation as well, but there's a method that you can just do this by swapping loadouts. So that is an option that is, I suppose, not going to be patched now, because I would assume that's quite difficult to patch with the amount of, the people on board right now at Bungie. And I don't think it would be really realistic to disable loadouts entirely, or disable a large amount of exotic weapons or something like that. So I assume it will stay in the game. So that is an option that exists, I suppose. I don't want to be clipped out of context here, because sometimes when I talk about these things, that there's an option for network manipulation and there's like a regular option that's just a bug. People will like clip me and say, oh, Aegis said this is actually how this works, and and they justify their cheating using that. So just to be clear here, there is an option you can use with loadout swapping, but that is a bug that exists, and it's being discussed right now whether that should be like allowed in speedrunning or in challenge content or stuff like that. But that's like kind of like a whole other class of things. In terms of in-game bugs, just like raw in-game bugs, it's mostly just Turncoat. Yeah, it's mostly just Turncoat, which for those of you who are not aware, if you charge up your Turncoat, you get the latent power bar all the way filled up. You can activate overwhelming power. So you can do the special reload, and then you can press your heavy button and instantly press super so that your heavy weapon never actually comes out. And when you come out of your super, the game doesn't actually recognize that you've fully stowed Turncoat, but because you input that swap to heavy input early, you come out of your super holding your heavy weapon, but you have overwhelming power on your screen. And so for whatever reason, this increases your rocket. A lot of people use rockets with this. Your rocket's explosive components by 30%. So rockets have a impact component. They have a detonation component. The detonation component is significantly larger, and that part gets boosted by 30%. So, obviously rockets are pretty good right now, regardless, right? Hezen is pretty strong. And if you combine that with Turncoat, you can get a lot of damage out of your rocket.
I think I've heard like rumors of that, but I've not seen that in play. So I'll need to check that out and see. I'm understanding what you're talking about, like with the layering of different inputs. And I can't imagine the back end of just like, I just imagine the game engine just trying to like, just sitting there and like manually trying to figure out like what we're doing, what we're pressing at different times and stuff like that. So
yeah,
that's awesome. one thing that kind of stands out to me, and this has been something that I've heard, oh my God, dude, my Discord, my DMs, my comments, chat, whatever, everyone's talking about freaking Chaos Reshaped. And like this goddamn bug that's happening with it and stuff. I reached out to you, right? Because I had this little bit of a tangent here, but for some reason this season, the reason for it was like, obviously I've been the exotic mission guy. Like that's been like my niche in the community since I started. And when they adjusted, or the beginning of the season, they brought in every exotic mission into the portal. They gave a different way to get all of the old and the legacy crafted gear. So that started a cascading effect of, hey, how do I get these weapons? Okay, this is performing well. People want to know this. Okay, how do I get this weapon? And I start just getting a crap load of comments and stuff. So that actually culminated in me creating my own spreadsheet that I put out, because I went through and I sourced every legendary weapon in the game, like everything that I could find, everything that is available, where it's available, is it tiered, enabled, or not, and doing all these things. I get to the point where people are asking me like, well, what, you've talked about where you get the crafted weapons from. What ones should we do? I create this list. I'm talking about new perks been added, Chaos Reshaped. They've just spammed that everywhere, like on almost every single new thing.
Yeah.
And like the feel of it on certain weapons, don't care for it on others, and didn't suggest it on all of them. But the amount of people who are like, oh my God, it's bugged. Why would you ever say this? And I'm like, first off, this is not, I reached out to you. You're like, hey, Spider Reviver knows, might have an idea. So I reached out to him as well. We're discussing, and basically the sentiment I got is like, he is optimized enough where he's like, I don't want to use it because I know it's there and it bugs me.
Yeah.
But
that's like the other end of the bell curve.
He's like, the average player isn't going to see this, or this isn't going to affect it. But so I want to just get down to the crux of it. And I'm hoping that you might be able to, like,
yeah, sure.
Is this overblown? Is this a genuine concern for most players, or where are we at with this goddamn perk, dude? I need to know.
Okay, well, it's definitely overblown because
thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, I mean it's oh
sorry, that's me. That's me spamming my bleep button over here.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's definitely overblown. I mean, how could it not be? I mean, it's
yeah, dude.
So I mean, I will say, before I talk about how the actual bug works, Destiny players have a tendency, I mean, a lot of video game communities are like this, where like, if players lack a full understanding of something, they'll assume if something gets nerfed, it's unusable. If it's buffed, it means it's automatically meta. If something is bugged and not working properly, that means it's automatically unusable. Like, they just immediately jump to the most extreme version of whatever, thought that they have. And so Chaos Reshaped, I did mention in a video, I think in like my primary tier list video or something like that, I mentioned that it was bugged because it was recently discovered at that time. And I think a lot of people in my comment section were like, wait, what do you mean it's bugged? And I'll be like, yeah, I'm just going to rank these assuming that Chaos Reshaped is going to be fixed or whatever. And I didn't really elaborate too much. And then I don't know if it was from that video, but I didn't really see much discourse on it until I made that video. And then a lot of people afterward were like, oh my God, Chaos Reshaped is bug, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think people really understand how the bug works. So basically, the way that the bug works is normally after you meet the ×2 requirements, you get a healing over time effect, right? And the way this used to work, I believe, is it used to give you 35 HP chunks every a certain number of seconds. So if it was over a long period of time. But now it gives you like a healing over time effect, which is like 5 HP per second split over 7 seconds. So it's equivalent functionally to the old 35 HP chunks. It's just spread out over time. That's like a slow heal. Okay. Now, the thing is if you're in the last 35 HP of your health bar, and I don't mean last at the bottom end, I mean at the top end. So the top end, if you're in the top 35 HP of your health bar, in the worst case scenario, you will get no healing effects besides Chaos Reshaped for that top chunk of your health bar. Okay. So the reason why I say worst case scenario is because a lot of the time you're going to heal past that 35 HP into that 35 HP threshold. So let's say you heal maybe 10 HP into that 35 HP threshold using cure or heal clip or like, whatever it is. And you get into that part of your health bar, then only 25 HP of your health will be effectively nerfed when it comes to healing. Now, what does this mean in terms of like actual end game play? I'm not going to lie, in 99% of scenarios, this is not going to matter at all. Like, it's not going to matter at all. The stuff that one-shots you in this game, it doesn't, like, most of the time, stuff doesn't literally one-shot you in this game. And even if it were to, like, come close to literally one-shotting you, this is really not going to matter for that kind of thing for the most part. I can see it mattering maybe in some very, very difficult content and some very, stressful moments maybe. But I don't know. It's really not that big of a deal. like I said, I mean, the best way to think about this is worst case scenario, the top, you're going to be missing 35 HP compared to how much you would normally have. And in that 35 HP, you're going to be slowly healing through it instead of being able to heal through it normally. Okay, sure. That's essentially what it is. So Spider is right. It's, for most people, this is literally never, ever, ever going to matter. And then for him, I mean, yeah, it definitely can bother you because sometimes you're just not going to see a full health bar. You're going to see a health bar where it's like you're almost full and then you have like this just an ant like inching slowly 5 HP per second on that last tiny chunk of your health bar. So like, yes, it kind of does matter, but it's like, the people that are complaining about this, it's definitely not going to matter for them, I would say. And the people that it would matter for, they understand kind of the trade-off. And I don't think it's intended, obviously, but they understand the trade-off and it's like, they're like, it's kind of whatever. So, I hope that makes people understand kind of how it works. If you're curious, you can go read the Destiny Data Compendium kind of sell for this. Just look it up, Destiny Data Compendium, go to the Weapon Perks tab, look at Chaos Reshaped and read it there. But it's essentially what I just said. So it's not, super complicated of a bug or anything. They might fix it. They might not. I've been told they're aware of it. The people that are there, that are, they're aware of it, but I don't think it's like super high priority or anything. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the unfortunate thing is I was like, I don't even know how many people there are to prioritize it. Right. I don't think we have.
I don't think it's getting fixed. Yeah. I'm gonna be real with you. I don't think it's getting fixed.
That's where it is. And I understand people being aspirational and wanting to be like, man, can they do this? Can they do this? And I don't know if it's setting a good or a bad precedent when they do things like they did for last Iron Banner. They're like, hey, we're going to pull disjunction or we're, these types of things, like they're touching some things. I think there's going to be a general misunderstanding from the community on like what is difficult, how hard is it to pull a map from rotation? Because the vast majority of the community dislikes it compared to going into what you're saying is like, obviously there's different systems that are at play with Chaos Reshaped, not understanding like, hey, like here's how we handle this if you're at this, this high place. So, are there specific methods to like, let's say you want to use a Chaos Reshaped weapon, like, and you may have even mentioned this, but like, just to make it clear, like if someone's using Devour, which would like fully heal you, is that going to bypass that effect if they get a kill?
Yeah, actually. So if you, as long as you heal a chunk of your health bar below the top 35 HP of your health bar and you skip it entirely, this has no effect on you. So gotcha. like I said, and I will say, right, some people are acting like this is like a negative for Chaos Reshaped, but like Chaos Reshaped, if this didn't have any of healing effect at all versus like this semi-bugged version of the healing effect, it's still a net positive. Because like overall, basically how this works is everything but the top 35 HP of your health bar, if you're in combat, you're getting a free additional 5 healing per second on top of all of your other healing effects. And then for the very top 35 HP of your health bar, you don't get stacked healing. You only get the Chaos Reshaped effect, which I would say on average is probably a net positive. Or not probably, I would say that's just a net positive on average. So, I don't, it's not as big of a net positive as it used to be if it wasn't bugged, but it's still a net positive. And of course you have the other parts of the perk, which is like, 35% damage increase for no kills required or anything, just combat, which is obviously good as well.
It seems like people they bind this up with, or it's falling into a similar place in the sandbox is something like Touch of Malice, which is like, we love the idea of like touch, but the problem is like, it does something negative to us. So we will never actually use it. Yeah. Like no, and it's like, doesn't matter how cool this is, it's just not going to happen. And people have taken it, they've grabbed onto and said like, hey, I understand Chaos Reshaped is a good weapon or a good weapon perk, but because they're even in their head, they have it blown up to the thing. I've gotten that same sentiment. It's like, well, why would I ever use this? Because it's going to have a negative effect on me. I'll just use this. I'm like, my brother in the light, you are not understanding what's going on here. So I appreciate that. I wanted to talk about that for a literal month at this point. Since I reached out to you. So I'm glad we were able to talk about that. Hey guys, if you're enjoying the show, would you consider directly supporting today by becoming a member on YouTube? This is the #1 way that you can support the channel and make it clear that you appreciate the time and effort put in to produce the podcast on a weekly basis. We have a variety of levels that you can select from to support the channel, each with their own unique benefits. However, every member will have their name shown in the credits at the end of the next episode after they join. Thank you for your consideration, and let's get back to the episode. I feel like that's a good segue, though, the hive mind, so to speak. And this is kind of like the tentpole thing that I wanted to talk about today. And I had sent over to you kind of like a general premise for this conversation, but the conversation topic or the heading I have here is optimal versus fun, like in the game, like optimizing for like the 1% or optimizing for fun in the game. And so the general premise was like putting out content. Like I said before, I put out this like crafted weapon video. I've talked about some other things like with the Sandbox, some things I've enjoyed, whether it's being live or just in a different video, a short, whatever I'm posting. And I will get specific in, I don't know if it's like verbatim quotes or if it's just them paraphrasing. But I've gotten what I've lovingly called the acolytes of Aegis for a little alliteration there. But basically, I'll get some people that feel like they're coming in and it's almost like they think that they're like fighting. It gives off the vibe of them like fighting on your behalf because it's not at the top in the left or whatever of your spreadsheet, right? Like that type of thing. Like it's like, no. You didn't scroll all the way to the top to see this. And I'm like, my brother, I didn't even look at that. Like, cause I'm not trying to steal someone else's work. Like, I know it's there. I know I can reference it and do it, but like I'm putting in work on my own. And this is a subjective list, which I literally say in the video, like, hey, this is subjective, but to test all the crafted weapons, try all the different things. It's a very expensive thing. I'm not playing the game as much as I had in the past. Yeah. So this is just my experience. But as I've talked to other people, there's been other people that I've heard that like have had similar things where they come in and they're like, oh, well, this said. I don't in any way believe that you have anything to do with it. I think you're just presenting the data. We've had conversations about like where you sit, but I thought it would be interesting for us to have this conversation now that we're at the final state. Yeah. We're not sitting here and prepping for the next contest mode activity, the next raid, the next expansion. We're not looking forward to a new sandbox. We're in it. I wanted to kind of get your idea, and you kind of even touched on it earlier when you were talking about like Titans and their viability. Yeah. Being that, like, I don't want to speak for you, but like, let me ask you this to start us off. Do you personally subscribe to the idea that players should check the spreadsheet before they're making suggestions or making their loadouts? Or is this something that should layer in the background? I guess where do you fall on that?
Well, I would say making suggestions and making your own loadout is like two different things, right? Because making suggestions is like you're giving a recommendation to someone else. So I guess in theory, you should be maybe coming from some place of objectivity or something like that.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of why I stopped myself, because I was like, no, I'm getting into different territories there.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're making your own loadout, I mean, bro, it's a video game. Like, do whatever you want. So I think people need to. So there's two things I want to touch on here. The first thing is in a game like Destiny, where so much of the game has been rooted in subjectivity and power fantasy and personal experiences. Having a channel like mine, where it's like I kind of come from a place of objectivity to some degree, can make some people feel like superior when they present certain information to other people, which I don't want. Obviously, that's not my goal. And then number two is the whole point of optimizing is to have fun, right? Like that fun is the end goal. The end goal, like optimizing, you can view it as an end goal, but like the end goal is maybe everybody has different fun in different games, right? Has different methods of having fun. And for some people in a game like Destiny, like a MMO adjacent, whatever, right? Maybe they're like, oh man, I really want to optimize my DPS, and that makes me really happy, right? That makes me, really, I'm have a great time if I do that. And if you're the type of person to do that, then the spreadsheets are for you, right? The spreadsheets are literally like, if you're the type of person who like optimizing is your thing and you want to just, be at the top of the charts and just really milk everything you can out of your character, then, that's what this is for. But other people, they have fun by just, soaking in the ambiance of a raid, or just kind of having some fun with their friends and just kind of relaxing and kind of going through, or using off meta stuff and just having an absolute laugh at just, oh my God, Telesto kills this boss. Like, this is crazy, right? Sure. Or just like maybe trying out the new Telesto catalyst or something like that, right? So everybody has fun in different ways. And of course, like me personally, if I'm raiding with other people, I kind of apply my own beliefs, right? If I'm raiding with other people and, as long as we're clearing the encounter, because like, obviously, to the degree of like, if 5 people, come into a raid with me, or, I join a group of 5 people, whatever it is, we kind of have a little agreement that like, yeah, we're here to clear the activity, right? Sure. So to that extent, yes, I mean, you know, obviously people should be trying to clear the activity. But you know, on the way there, how you get there is not my business. You know, how you get there is not my business. And of course, at the end of the day, you know, we're here to have fun. We're here to have fun. Of course, when you enter into a cooperative activity with other people, there is some level of agreement there that, like, you know, we're not going to just waste each other's time and just fuck around unless that is the express purpose of the group. Then by all means, you know, if you're not there to clear the encounter, you're just there to just, you know, absolutely troll each other. Then that's one thing. Right. But, you know, most people, when they agree to an LFG, you know, that's not the case. And, you know, they're there to clear the encounter. But again, how you get there, not really my business, not really my business. And if you like optimizing, spreadsheets are for you, like I said. But if you have fun in other ways, that's not my business.
Yeah. I love that. And the one thing that has pissed people off so much, and to be fair, like, I mean, maybe you do have a direct conversation about this in whether your specials or your heavy, you know, weapon rankings and breakdowns. But my suggestion, like, I have a special place in my heart for some reason for like scatter signal. Yeah. And I know it's not the top, but I love I loved the Season of the Wish. Oh yeah. Like Sandbox. I loved that. I loved getting out with Dragon's Breath, being able to apply slice and I don't know, just like everything about that with Warlord's Ruin, even like I have like a special place in my heart for that. Yeah. And then for some other reason, I've always loved Briar's Contempt. Mm-hmm. I know 3-round burst linears are not the best. I know they're not.
I mean, they were for a time. So, you know, when it came out, it was definitely like pretty decent, you know?
For sure. And I know unequivocally. And so I love that it has like its niche use case. And I know it's the 10% when you're using all harmonic resonance weapons, like doesn't even push it above. But I just love the idea of having a weapon set that you pull together and say, hey, when I go into Ghosts of the Deep, and I have Samuma here, like she is a shell of herself from what she was when we first started. Like we are so power crept. Even with that, I can hit a comfy solo 3 phase, which you tell me is like, well, yeah, if you use Cataclysmic or you use A499, whatever, like you can, I'm like, dude, that's not the point. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying like, hey, there's this cool thing where you do more damage to light bearing, you know, enemies. And I can get in here and do that. But dude, the amount of people that got so fucking pissed when I'm like, hey, you guys should
that's crazy.
You should give, give another. Yeah. Because it's just comment section, right? Like this is no one who I'm actually talking to. No one would be bold enough.
None of these people. No.
No one would be in my chat doing that. This is in a comment section when I'm like, hey, it wasn't even on my list. It was an honorable mention. I'm like, hey, you should give a look to Scatter Signal again with Slice on it. Just really cool. Good for solo play. We got particle reconstruction back. Can play this around, do whatever. And people are like, oh my fucking God, why would you even say that? I'm like, dude, okay, we got to talk about this because like your name literally like would pop up and be like, well, Aegis says that all fusions are shit now. I'm like, well, guess what, brother? I'll talk to Aegis next time I have him on my fucking podcast. How about that? And I'll tell him that I like Scatter Signal to his face because I don't think he cares. I don't think he cares.
I really don't.
that was the crux. And that was where like, that was the closest thing to like throwing my phone away and just not looking at comments because the video was doing really well. And it was like, there was just this underlayment of people that were coming in and they were just all saying the same thing. And like, did I miss a freaking memo or what was going on? So what's the latest with fusions? Why are people so mad at me enjoying a fusion rifle?
Well, there's 2 things. So the first thing is I will say, people need to understand that there's kind of like a grounded satisfaction in being able to clear activities with little interactions. Maybe they're not meta. Oftentimes they're not meta, but little interactions, like little ideas that you have in your head, little concepts that you have in your head, and just see them work out in real time, even if you don't clear in 1 phase or 2 phase or whatever, as a solo, right? Like maybe you clear in 3 phases, but it's just cool to kind of like see that work out and see like, oh, I can complete an activity, even though I'm, you know, maybe not being the most optimal. So there's like satisfaction in that, obviously. And, you know, if you're not making the claim that something's like objectively the best, like numerically, which most people in the Destiny content space are not, then it's like there's no reason to be up in arms about these things, right? And then when it comes to fusions, right? I mean, we are technically in a particle season, we'll call it, because you have particle, right? Sure. People have referred to seasons in the past with particles like particle seasons. So they definitely help fusions a lot. Like Merciless, for example, is a weapon where I typically wouldn't really recommend it as much for like killing a mini boss in like Pantheon or something like that if you're just using it for roam. But we have Particle, which puts it, you know, in theory, 27% above other specials, which is definitely a big enough of a gap for me to say, yo, Merciless is actually really good at melting like an Ogre, for example, in Totems in 5e Pantheon. Like there's teams that used it for that. So yeah, I mean, there's you can say that fusions are not, doing so well mathematically compared to some of the other specials. Like if you're looking for optimal legendary special for DPS, then yes, fusion does not really meet that, descriptor. But if you just want to use something for, casual roam, just killing like a champion, or you want to just, apply particle and you're using like a linear and you don't want to like waste particle bolts on just like your linear shots and you want something that can instantly apply all the stacks, slice fusion. I mean, there's literally nothing better, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, I don't know. It's really not that deep. I think. I think people take things a little seriously sometimes, but it's not that complicated.
Yeah, it's not that deep either on my end, but it was something that I put a little pin in. I'm like, if I have a chance, if we get enough, because that's the way it's like. I feel like I can find something to talk about with Destiny, but anytime you come on the podcast, I'm like, I like have this running tally in the back of my head, like, oh, I should talk with Aegis about that. I should talk with Aegis about that. And like, great. I just kind of queue them up and I just get them running. I'm like, okay, now we have enough. Let's talk and let's do this.
No, I'm down. I got time. If you got anything else you got pinned on the fridge, like let me know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think we're in the place where it kind of even echoes back to the last episode, which
echoes.
Exactly.
You like that one.
It's all tied together. But it ties together like back to the one we just had with like all the LFG conversation, which has been a sleeper, very good performing podcast across every platform, by the way. So if you guys have not watched that, we talked because Aegis did a full like LFG how to, like basically just like an LFG masterclass. And I'm blanking on the other videos you had made at that point, but like but it ties back to the attitude or the posture that you come into activities with, right? Mm-hmm. There's something very different. Like if I have 2 streams up, I'll have people in my community who stream very often, not necessarily even as like content creators, but more just like for their friends that live elsewhere in the country who want to watch them, but throw them up on the TV, stuff like that. And I have guys who are really, really pushing the envelope and they're doing 5 feats. They're doing duo epic Korgos, things of these sorts. Like, obviously, you're going to look at the very top of the list. You're going to look and try to do all that. And I got guys who are like, hey, we're just trying to bring this person through. We're going to cheese Atheon to make sure that we get certain people inside because we don't even want to teach them how to do oracles. Like they're very different vibes. It's like, okay, well, you don't need to have the exact same optimization across this. Like if this team's doing a 5 feet, this team's doing like adventure mode. Like that's a thing that exists in the game now. And so as we're getting through, I think it's just good to kind of like release the pressure valve a little bit. And hopefully people hear when it's saying like, hey, just because this is here, like this is data, but it's not to be put out there in like a negative capacity or like in an overlording way. It kind of falls back to what you were saying where it's like, hey, we understand why you're at the top of DPS because you're not helping your teammates. You're not like giving them suggestions or doing these types of things.
Yeah, it's important to grow as like a well-rounded player for sure.
Yeah. All right. Aside from that, man, I've kind of reached the end of like the main points I want to make. I have a game for us here at the end. I had told you before. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get into that? Anything that's hitting with the sandbox, anything that's standing out to you above the rest? You're just general thoughts. So you talk about anything.
Not really. I hope people are having fun. And, if you have an excuse to bring some old friends into Destiny and just, show them the ropes and bring them through all the new content, DP, EDP, Pantheon, all that sort of stuff. Definitely take the chance because game is still looking fairly healthy, I would say. So now's a good time, to bring some friends through. But I hope everyone's having fun if you're still playing.
Ironically, I think the average player count is as high or like nearly as high as it ever has been when I've created content for Destiny, which is ironic because I started right before Edge of Fate.
That's crazy. Yeah.
It's the grand irony of it. So I'm kind of like shifting. I've been playing the Division a little bit, doing here on the channel some podcasts about the Division. I really enjoy the game with the life coming in and seeing that there's a Destiny crossover. So I've been doing a little bit of that. But honestly, I'm just trying to enjoy video games. I feel like for a long time when you get into the content space, you have to almost like intentionally be like, hey, I'm just going to set time to not make content and just play the game. And I feel like too many people, maybe get away from that or they lose focus on that. So it's been nice. The last thing I did want to say before we get into our into the game show segment here is I was telling my wife today that we were doing this, and I said Aegis just got the he just got the world record for Last Wish speedrun, which I saw the video. Do you still have that? Is that still you guys?
Yeah.
So with that, because I saw you guys doing more runs, and I'm like, I don't know if you guys are just optimizing or if someone else is like racing with you to try to push that. And she, historically, my wife absolutely hates Last Wish because the team she played it with originally was just so bad it would take us forever. And she's like, there's another encounter. And then when Queen's Walk dropped, we didn't tell her it was a thing, and she about rage quit. And she's like, how long did it take them? 5 hours? I'm like, no, I was like, no, I think it was like 10 minutes actually. She's like, no, that's bullshit. So I'm going to be showing her your world record run later today, because she was astounded at the fact that did not take you guys as long as it took us. So
yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, so I will be doing that one to share that with you. Okay, so this is just a fun little thing. You actually touched on one of these earlier. In here is the idea. Okay, so I was ideating on a couple of different games, some things that we could do to kind of round out kind of a retrospective on Destiny DPS rotations. Okay, so here's what the concept. We're basically taking the fuck, marry, kill format, but instead we're going to do buff, maintain, or nerf. Here's the concept.
I like that a lot.
Here is the concept. We are in the final sandbox of Destiny. We're imagining a world where Bungie allowed, I have a list of 17. What I was looking for was DPS rotation. I asked my Discord, so if anyone's listening to this, they'll be like, Sax asked about DPS rotations the other day. They took my question way different. And so I just started getting spammed with a bunch of things that had nothing to do with what I was trying to create. But I loved seeing people's images and things that they were sharing. Anyways, I went through and I was trying to think of DPS rotations that stood out so much in the game that Bungie had to make like an actual change to the sandbox, right? Like it was like shifting. It was here for a limited time, taken away. So we're going to imagine that with this final thing, in a similar fashion to how they brought back all the artifacts, let's imagine that they were going to, they were bringing these to you and they were like, hey, we want to give access to players these metas that were here. Knowing what you know about the sandbox today, I want you to tell me if you think that DPS meta would need to be buffed to match up what we currently have, maintained, like, hey, it was good enough, like we'll keep it, or nerf it because no, it was still too strong to come down to where we are.
And are we talking like relative power, like at the time that the meta was happening?
I would say, I think when we get in here, like knowing how strong the weapon is now, because a lot of these are like little bugs things, like bugged interactions, things of this sort. And so maybe getting into it, I'll let you kind of establish how you want to, and I'll let you run that because I think you know a little more about that. So the first one, I did a randomization of these like 12 times to get them. For some reason, this one kept going to the top, so it really wanted to be. So this is the Berserker Titan Banner of War ability spam from Season of the Witch. So that meta, if we still had access to that.
So you're not talking grapple melee, right? You're just talking about the actual super.
Not yet. Not yet. So the actual super. I'm talking like being on Berserker Titan. So sorry, grapple melee. We're going to talk Hunter grapple melee.
Okay, so you're talking like Green Man, like season 23, running around coil, like pre-nerf Banner War, Titan grapple.
Exactly.
Melee. Okay.
Exactly.
Dude, I think a lot of people love that sandbox. I mean, it's part of the reason why season 23, like you're not the only one, like a lot of people loved season 23.
For sure.
So I would say this one's kind of hard because like if we say relative to the meta at the time, it would probably just be the same. Like it would probably just be maintained. Compared to today, maybe would need a buff, but I would say I would lean more toward maintain. I would say more toward maintain. I think it would be kind of like fine in the sandbox.
Okay. We have this a little bit here, but this is one that I feel like they had to make a change and then it's come back. We're talking the classic Still Hunt Celestial Hezen Solo Witness, like the origination of the Solo Witness rotation.
Yeah.
To get it to where it was before, when Bungie was like, all right, we need to kind of tune this down a little bit.
That's hard because obviously you can argue that it's more powerful now than it was back then.
Sure.
But at the time it was like nothing was close, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like a lot of things are kind of close. Well, not like, sort of. There's some things that are kind of close. So it's like, I would say probably like between maintain and nerf, like between maintain and nerf, probably like maintain.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that I know where this one's going to lie. And some of this came from some of, polling from some of your historical data as well. I'm just interested to see, like going back here. This is the infinite damage stacking throwing hammers.
Oh, that would definitely need a nerf. That's not even close. Yeah. Because people say like this is like the strongest meta ever. And the two things that came to my mind, I think instantly were like pre-nerf pack hunter chunking and throwing hammer. And like throwing hammer, the big thing with throwing hammer is that like pre-nerf pack hunter chunking is one thing, right? It's like doing a lot of damage with rockets. With throwing hammer, you could literally run around an LFG on Solar Titan and an Eager Edge Sword. And when it came time for boss damage, you would go shoot, bonk, bonk, and the boss was dead. So like, there's no other damage. I mean, you could argue maybe like Lucky Pants was like a similar concept where you could run a sword and you could just be on like Crimson and Uncivil and like one shot a boss.
Sure.
But like, we've never really had a meta where like you can literally run around and be mobile and just like one shot a boss with just raw abilities. I mean, I guess maybe you could argue Grapple Melee is kind of like that, but like, I don't know, Throwing Hammer was not even like close. Like Throwing Hammer was just insane. Especially like there was a period where I would say it wasn't like balanced still, but it was like more balanced. But the period where it was bouncing hammers, like that was a little silly.
Dude, watching back your video you put out a couple years ago about this subject matter, like the historical stuff, and you kind of touched on a little bit of this. Seeing you do like Atheon and then like what was it? It was like 27 bounces or something like that, 22 or 27, and just you're like, here's how I did it, and then you put the still image up and like you were calculating all the things, and it was like 260 some million damage.
Yeah.
One-shotting every boss combined in the game.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that is one of the craziest things.
Yeah, that was absolute shits and giggles. That little math calculation that I did. That was funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one was obvious. It's just some of this is nice just as a retrospective. We've talked about it multiple times here. This is the Prismatic Hunter Grapple Melee spam.
Ooh. That one's interesting because it's quite recent. For what it's worth, Prismatic Grapple Melee on Hunter. If it was in the current sandbox, I honestly think it would be close to balanced. Because there are weapons that if Grapple Melee had never been nerfed, there are weapons that literally just do more DPS than that right now. They obviously require like some setup and they're like the top of the top stuff, but they just do more damage. So
sure,
you would still use Grapple Melee for maybe like some solo stuff, maybe some solo challenges would still use Grapple Melee, but yeah, it's pretty crazy to imagine that we've honestly gone beyond that or close to beyond that. So I would say nerf, but a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lil nerf. Is what I'm
not as much as Bungie nerfed it. I would say a nerf, but a little bit.
Yeah. One of my favorite, honestly, and maybe this just like is just like showing how much of an unk I am, but one of my favorite DPS rotations was just Outbreak super spam. So like Corrigo's getting in there using Outbreak, seeing that super bar go, and hitting the swaps, right? Like there was just different parts to it. It wasn't that the weapons that you were setting up were doing, but like that's one thing that I loved. And then like SMG spam, getting that up. Where would you say, like if they're like, all right, we're going to bring back where primaries can regen your super as strong as they were back when DP first came out.
So you're saying like super spam meta in general or like Outbreak specifically? Yeah.
Exotic primary, bringing up that super spam.
I mean, I think even if you could get supers like relatively quickly, actually, I don't know. With the current supers, like stuff like Blade Barrage and stuff. Okay, the thing is that if you reverted the super generation nerf across the board, I think people would use high power, special, and power weapons, and then also super spam instead of using exotic primaries. But let's say you lived in a world where they reverted the super gen nerf, but specifically for exotic primaries. Then I would say it probably wouldn't need a buff. It would probably be mostly balanced. I think the community would not like it because I think a lot of people thought that meta was kind of boring. But yeah, I would say it would be, with how strong the supers are now. I mean, like if you could spam a blade barrage, you know, with if you could spam a blade barrage with shards of, I was correct the first time. Sure. If you could spam a blade barrage with shards of Galanor like every like 7 seconds or something, like yeah, it'd be pretty usable, I would say. Maybe. Yeah,
I think that'd be fun. That sounds like a damn good time to me. Yeah. So being able to get in and toggle on, and maybe if there was some sort of capacity there to be able to swap between them. Okay, this is one that you already touched on today, and I watched. I remember seeing the clip of Salt destroy Nezarec with this. This is the 4th Horseman Slug swap bug.
Okay,
if people, because this, I'm walking a fine line calling it skill expression of swapping between, but there is a level to where like you have to pull off stuff like that. Like you have to be able to survive. You have to be able to get the ammo, have that available. Like he was sweating to be able to pull that one phase off. On Nezarec. And I'm sure other people did it as well, if I haven't seen it, but where would you sit if they brought that in at this point?
That would, that's the one I know the least about in terms of math, like in terms of where it would sit now. Okay. It's weird because like I remember people doing it on Templar, and I remember seeing the boss's health bar kind of go down in chunks, but I've also seen recently people kill Templar in like 2 seconds with Goldies. Dude. So like, yeah, I don't really know. Like, would it be balanced? Like, I'm going to say, I mean, obviously this wouldn't be in the game, but like, I'm going to say like maybe small nerf. Just a guess.
Little nerf as well. Yeah. That does gets a little hard with some of these.
Yeah. Cause you're really like having to do some abstract math to get any sort of real comparison.
Yeah. We're getting imaginary numbers at this point. And we're going to absolutely have that here in a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of funny going back and looking at some of these.
Yeah, for sure.
The next one is, this actually is one, this is a fairly recent one, but I want to know in the current sandbox and what we received, even with Renegades, how this was set up. This is the Opaque Hourglass Infinite Ammo DPS. So like the bugged interaction with Vorpal, things that were happening there. It seemed like Opaque Hourglass was just like by and far away for like such a short time period, like the best option for what we were doing in the game. And then all of a sudden it's just like nowhere to be seen.
You mean the temporal blast thing with the seasonal mod? Okay.
Yep.
That was good. I honestly think it would probably be close to balanced in the current sandbox, unless I'm remembering things wrong. Cause I don't remember the exact numbers that it was producing, but if I remember correctly, it was like, it would be fairly, I honestly, this is probably like the one that's closest to just like maintain, probably.
Okay.
So I just say maintain, I guess.
Yeah. It was like, when I was looking back, cause I was trying to figure out and even remember everything that played into it. I believe the number that you had on one of your slides at the time when you're kind of talking about Edge of Fate DPS was like 65% higher than other options, which obviously wasn't then, but then some of the things we've received, some of the interactions we have, it's just something.
I mean, just knowing how fast the kill was back then with like pre-nerf temporal on like Corregos, for example, like the kills now are faster. So, I mean, you could even argue that it should be buffed, but
it's freaking crazy, man.
Yeah.
Actually, I need to go run DP. I have not ran that in a hot minute.
Mm-hmm.
The next one I have here is the bugged interaction between Thunderlord and Divinity.
Oh, that needs a buff for sure. Yeah, that would need a buff for sure. Because even at the time, it still wasn't that good.
Yeah,
so it would need a buff for sure.
Though again, it was one of those things that permeated beyond and made people think that it was much better than it was.
I mean, like I said at the beginning, right? If something is bugged, people are going to assume if it's bugged in a good way, people are going to assume it's going to be meta. If it's bugged in a bad way, people are going to assume it's unusable. It's always extremes. Yeah.
yeah. There's no in between. There's no nuance.
No.
Okay. Double Slug Anarchy, Season of the Splicer.
Oh, I mean, people love this one. With the current slugs that we have right now, even if you could quick swap, I don't think it would be. You'd probably be on Parasite these days because you would be boosting the slug damage. To bring it up enough so that it would be like a viable, right? Like overcome Parasite is what I kind of think. Yeah, I'd say. I mean, you'd have to buff the Anarchy because like otherwise it's like the slugs are not changing between the two, right? You're just swapping out the heavy weapon, so you have to buff Anarchy. I would say, I don't know. It'd probably need a buff. Yeah, I probably need a buff. I don't know how much, but it would need a buff.
Gotcha. All right, talked about it a little bit. Uncivil Discourse, Lucky Pants.
Ooh. That's okay. So raw number wise, I think it would be balanced, but in terms of like function inside of your loadout compared to other options, I think it would maybe need a small nerf, I would say.
Okay. Bringing that down a little bit. What is the current status of, like, I've heard that it is even easier now to solo witness than it was with Unlucky Civil. Like, do you?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's true.
Lucky Uncivil.
Yeah.
Put those together. Like, do you know? I know that you don't necessarily get into it all the time. But like, do you know what people are actually using now? Like,
dude, I've seen like YouTube videos of people soloing the witness with 1K. Like it literally like okay. You could use some crazy shit and you can solo the witness. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff you can use really, but I think with how much stuff in the sandbox now, like it's not too hard. Even two-phasing him is not very hard these days from what I've seen.
What's crazy is it used to be the damage piece, like people would understand the mechanics before they would get the damage down for it. I remember very vividly watching Llama back at the end of Revenant doing his first clear and trying to knock that out. But now it's like, if you can get the mechanics down, you can kill the witness. Like you can miss a lot of stuff. Get to DPS.
Yeah.
All right. The next one we have here, this is another more recent entry into the record books, but the Controverse Chunking.
Yeah. So that one's actually quite interesting because it was never as OP as a lot of people made it out to be. Like, it was obviously strong, but like it was not as game breaking as a lot of people. Like is it on the level of like Throwing Hammer? It's not even close. That's not even close. It was similar to like a very high damage. Like it was similar to like a very high DPS rotation. Except it's obviously like refreshable and you can just run around on a sword. So in a way, it's kind of like Lucky Pants, where they do really high damage and they allow you to just neglect other parts of your loadout, like your heavy and whatever, that normally you would have to like think about and worry about if you're doing a standard damage strategy. So I would say Contra Chunking. I would say Nerf. I would say like a medium-sized Nerf. Because there's some activities where like, actually, funnily enough, I would say the non-boss damage activities where you're running around killing champs or you're running around killing mini bosses, you're running around killing like certain things before objectives, like those are the ones that are probably more like negatively affected balance wise than actual just boss damage. Because there's a lot of stuff where it's like you can kind of compete with Contra Chunking or do even better than Contra Chunking in our current sandbox, and if you optimize a bit, but like you can't really replace Contra for just like running up to a champ at like -30, -40 and just like holding your charge. Like if you get a good chunk, you can nuke and unstop through its resist without stunning it, dude. So yeah, I mean, you can't really replace that. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, as much as it was fun to do that season and just run around in portal activities and just like stare at the floor and throw my grapes at the floor, like that's probably not good for the game.
That's funny. Yeah, it'd be cool if like barrier champs, since you can walk into their barrier, like if you could just walk in there
and throw the grapes down and they would just fall over.
Well, it would be crazy as if like they bounced around inside. That would be awesime.
Like turn them into like bouncing around inside of a bubble.
For real, you turn them into like a little grape snow globe.
Yeah.
I'm shaking up. All right, this is one that that was interesting to me. One that I was not skilled enough to ever do myself. This is the Billy, the Izanagi. GL quick swap from season.
That need a buff, like for sure. It would need like I would say like a big buff actually for it to be big competitive. Buff. Yeah.
All right, I'll put that down there. And for anyone who wasn't playing at that time, can you give a slight breakdown of what was actually going on?
Yeah, so Izzy Wendy or Billy is a variant of a quick swap rotation. So just like Double Slug Anarchy, where you could use sprint canceling to quickly swap between two slugs to bypass their fire rate and basically shoot a slug at like 2 times its normal DPS with the Anarchy ticking. Izzy Wendigo was like a more ranged version of this rotation where you'd run Izanagi's Burden, you'd run an energy slot GL like Truth Teller, something similar, and then you'd run a heavy weapon. Specifically, you'd run a heavy GL like Wendigo with explosive light and like the blinding nades, which at the time, blinding nades made it so Wendigo did a lot more damage with explosive light compared to other standard heavy gels. And so by using this combination, you would quick swap and you would go, I believe it was Izzy, heavy GL, and then special GL, and then 2 heavy gels, and then you go back to Izzy. And then you do this like kind of, and this was pre-nerf Izzy as well, where you could like rehone really quickly. So you're basically using like 3 high swap DPS weapons and using the quick swap like sprint cancel glitch in order to mask some of the swap animation time between all of these weapons. And then you would just have like a really fast rotation by doing this. But the damage was honestly at the time, obviously it was very good. But for the amount of effort required, it wouldn't even like, it would not be like anywhere near as good in the current sandbox.
Gotcha. I always wondered, like, so watching the footage of this is like very jarring because it's like so clean, so specific. Is that macroed first off?
There's definitely people who have like used macros to like do their swaps. The clip in my video isn't not mine, by the way, because I did not play when Billy Billy was a thing.
I think everything on screen.
Almost all of the clips are from like, you know, other people's channels, but I don't know of anybody in like the speedrunning community that like macroed their swaps, at least to you know, to my knowledge. Because like learning, you know, Billy Billy and like having like clean swaps was like a fun thing for people. So like I don't think they would try to cheat themselves out of that. So yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is like your opinion on why do you think we've not seen more? And maybe I'm just ignorant to it, but like it doesn't seem like we have as many players like from China or from like these other markets that rise up when it comes to like placement on like the day one leaderboards and things. But like there occasionally we'd have stuff like this come out of there. Do you have any intersection like with anyone that would be over on this?
Yeah. So I actually have a friend, and I know a couple of people in the Chinese community that I've like farmed with, or that I've actually like run with, or, you know, that I still maintain contact with. But yeah, the Chinese market is obviously smaller for D2. Sure. But there's still a lot of players in China that play D2. And they tend to kind of stick to themselves, honestly. Like when it comes to even like speedrunning and stuff like that, like they have their own farming groups, they have their own like running groups. So they kind of tend to stick to themselves, partially because of the language barrier, but also I believe like sometimes they try to like not release some of the stuff that they found for like, you know, speedrun tech or whatever it is, so that Bungie doesn't patch it, because they're worried that Bungie's going to patch it. So that's what I've heard, at least. For example, like the horizontal rocket grapple thing where you can open an inventory or a menu to cancel the recoil and get a consistent grapple off. Apparently they've known about that for like months or like for months before the English community did. And there's like multiple examples of the Chinese community finding stuff like long before the English community did. And like the English community just happens to like stumble upon it. And then, you know, there's like Chinese players. They don't even like rub it in our faces or anything. They just have it, and they've been doing it. And
they're like, welcome.
Welcome to Rocket Grappling.
dinner's prepared for you. Welcome.
Yeah, but there's honestly not much crosstalk between the communities. So like even that kind of interaction would not really happen that much. There's some Chinese players that like make the effort to like talk and stuff. And I'm sure you've seen people like ZCP, for example, who's like he's like a pretty well-known solo player. And there's some like teams, like Korean, Chinese teams, like Asian teams that occasionally breach like, you know, top 100 or, you know, top 50 on the day one leaderboards. And some of them actually place fairly high, but I would say it's like it's like the game interest difference is, you know, definitely big. And in you know, that region compared to ours, and they kind of do tend to stick to themselves. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So, but yeah, shout out to the Chinese players. They're so nice. Like I don't know if you've ever like interacted with any of the Chinese D2 players, but they're super nice, super respectful. And they're always like, also, at least in my experience, I've known quite a few Chinese D2 players, but they're always like very excited. I was very excited to talk to you about stuff. And they're always excited to be talking to like an NA D2 player. So it's
interesting.
They're adorable. That's all I have to say. They're adorable.
That's awesome.
They really are.
I've not had very many interactions. The closest thing I've had was for Destiny Rising. I had some videos get taken and put onto Billy Billy. Yeah. From my coverage there.
Dude, speedrunners all the time, they get messaged by Chinese like speedrunners and they're like, oh my God, you know, I love your video. Do you mind if I like subtitle it in Chinese and then I put it on Billy Billy and we'll credit you and everything? Like the Chinese are super like, they're like, there are accounts on like TikTok, for example, that will steal speedrunning clips all the time.
Sure.
That are like American, but like the Chinese, they will always message you. They'll always message you and be like, yo, we'll credit you and everything. Just like want to make sure that you're cool with this. So it's super nice. Yeah. They're super respectful. Cool. They're really nice.
That's great. Yeah. That's the closest I've gotten, but that's awesome. So it was something that came to mind. I was like watching this. I'm like, okay, the skill expression here, if this is something being done by hand, is something figured out. I'm like, I wonder what that would be, but I guess it makes sense. Like if it's a smaller community, that makes sense to me. And honestly, there's something to be said about like, hey, we got a good thing over here and we're just going to keep it to ourselves.
Yeah. So, and also just to be clear, so the connection is made for those of you that are watching that or maybe not aware. Bilibili was named Bilibili because there was a user on the Chinese streaming / video hosting platform called Bilibili. That's the biggest one in China that uploaded an example of a rotation with the Izzy Wendy thing. And it made its way to America, and the people here were mind blown. And they called it the Bilibili. It's called the Bilibili, which is crazy to name a rotation after an entire. It's as if the Chinese players discovered a damage rotation from America and called it the YouTube rotation. It's basically that. So that's how much of a splash it had, especially like for like the garden farming community. Like people love doing Bilibili.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, on Sanctified, there's so many clips of like American players doing that. So. Yeah, super cool, but we love them, so I guess that's why it was called the Bilibili.
Shout out
Bilibili.
All right, our next one here. This is a more recent one. You actually touched on it a little bit earlier. This is Finality's Augur double Rocket Pulse spam.
If we're not including the Super Gen stuff, this would need a buff. Yeah, this would definitely need a buff.
Here's one for you, and we've gotten iterations of this. This keeps kind of like poking its head back in. But I have the best memories of this from Into the Light, Pantheon 1.0. This is the 3-shot Goldie orb spam.
Oh, Goldie chaining, Space Force method. Yeah. Goldie chaining is interesting. I mean, there's low-key ways you can do it now with a grasp set, but I don't think there's any like coordinated 6-man teams that are looking into that sort of stuff anymore because there's no more day ones. No more day ones means there's definitely less like groups of people that are invested in like strat hiding and creating like crazy strats to show on a day one. Which is, I don't know, both a good and a bad thing, I suppose. But yeah, Goldie chaining. Oh, that is interesting, isn't it? I'd say probably maintain. Maintain because of the amount of people it requires to be on board with the strategy. And then of course, like the actual damage of 3-shot Goldie, even with Star Eaters, is like the DPS is not actually that high. So I would say like, yeah, probably maintain.
This could just say more about the teams I was playing with at the time than not, but like it felt like a good skill expression to even be able to pull it off.
Yeah, like after they added some of the like special requirements to like, you can pick up orbs while you're in your Goldie and stuff. You had to kind of like, stagger people, spread them out, make sure you're running the right loadouts and stuff. And like the weapons you were running kind of like mattered for like some of the animation stuff. So yeah, there was definitely it's not the most like brain dead Destiny damage option ever for sure. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we would know. We would always call someone out because like we were talking about earlier, when you're playing with a coordinated team and you see the wipe screen, it's okay then to be like, hey, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Get your stuff up. But that's like when you're playing with team. That's not when you're in an LFG. So if I got one dude who's like, yeah, we just wiped there because I missed my crits and didn't create orbs for you guys. And we would always know. Like I remember explicitly on Rolk when that Pantheon round came up. Yeah. We had the Shadow Rolk roaming around and we were going through trying to use that. And the amount of funny conversations we had with someone.
Dude, the Pantheon speedrunning era with like the Goldie chaining, that was definitely an era of Destiny, like its own little microcosm, we'll call it.
An era of all time. So this one was hilarious to watch back. You had a clip from Cross using this in Grasp of Avarice. This is the Retrofit Escapade Infinite Volatile Spam.
Yeah, I mean, definitely buff. Definitely buff.
I love that. I love that. Mm-hmm. Even with all the volatile stuff we got on the artifacts.
Oh, for sure. It definitely needs a buff. Yeah.
That's awesome. I would love to see that. Just seeing it in game. Like obviously I did it at the time, but like watching it again in game,
dude. Oh my god! Or seeing old volatile like with funnel web, bro. A boss just like vibrating with volatile was crazy. I kind of miss it because now volatile is like, oh, you get the occasional little void explosion, and it's like, oh, they're volatile. It's good obviously, but like old volatile just had like it was a very special like visual. Like just the aesthetic of it, the way of the vibrating boss and just having those volatile kind of sparks fly out so rapidly and the noise that it made as well is just, it's just such a, like there's something so standout about that, so like unique about that. And I feel like when they reduce the RPM or not the RPM, but like the rate at which the volatile can happen, it definitely killed part of that visual kind of standout kind of feature to me, which kind of is a little sad, but I obviously get why they had to do it.
Yeah. Dude, it was causing Greg like it in Grasp just to like I mean, he was just getting shoved across the arena from it, dude. Like it's nothing. All right, I have 3 more for you. This one is a modern one that I want to get your take on. This is the hierarchy of needs ring stacking.
So from right now,
bow shenanigans from right now.
Obviously doesn't need a buff. I would say, honestly, given that it's a primary, maybe a small nerf. Nerf, yeah.
Lil nerf.
I don't mind it, like, just to be clear, because we're at end of service. It's kind of whatever, have your fun. Sure. But maybe if we're continuing forward, probably, I mean, if we're continuing forward, a lot of things would need to be nerfed. But I would say like a small nerf, yeah.
Yeah, tiny nerf here. All right, these two are more thinking back at some of the good times. We're talking lightweight sword, no ammo, aerial attacks.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Oh boy. That's like top 3, I think. That's got to be like top 3, top 4 maybe of all time. I mean, obviously nerf. And nerf it they did. Have you seen how much damage a no ammo sword does to ads now?
I've not.
Oh my goodness gracious. Like I mean in PvP. So I made the mistake one time recently, actually. I was playing PvP and there was a guy that was low, like near me, and I was chasing him with my empty eager edge sword. Like you can skate around with PvP with an empty eager edge sword. And so I chased him, and he was like melee range, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna hit him with my sword. I did like 2 damage to him, damage to him. So it also applied in PvP. But yeah, in PvE, if you try to hit an ad with like no ammo, it's oh boy,
it's basically a pool.
Yeah, they pulled it in the complete opposite direction on the spectrum. Yeah. So. Yeah, not good.
All right, our final one here, and this is a time period in the game that has a special place in my heart. Mm-hmm. We're talking crafting, baby. We're talking full auto, shotgun, Amit AR4. We're talking Tarnation.
Yeah.
What we have, Fire and Forget, I think was the other one people were using.
Dude, imagine crafting now with like the triple crafted options that we have now, or whatever it is now. Like that would be crazy.
For Christ's sake, do not put Chaos Reshaped on there, because that 35% HP bug at the end.
That won't be happening. But oh my, dude, oh man, yeah, we could have like lightweight swords with like double eager or something. That would be crazy. Or just like,
dude,
aggressive shotgun on a GL. Lots of
for anyone. Obviously, this is more just like a remembering thing, because this isn't a actual DPS rotation. But yeah, the LOL factor of being able to, like, those are clips that will perform at any time. I think at any day.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
With like, if you need a clip as a Destiny creator, if you have good crafting clips, go ahead and just throw those up, because those are, I mean, those things are so good. So
yeah, shooting a linear and seeing like aggressive shotgun shots just come out of each burst, like
yeah. So. Well, man, this has been a blast, and I appreciate. I don't know, with everything going on in Destiny, I don't know how many more times I'm gonna fill up that checklist and stuff. But I do want to say thank you very much for coming on, being willing to come back, and I promise if I have enough that pops up, I will definitely reach out.
For sure.
What can people be looking forward to? I know you have a couple more things that you said you're working on. What should they be looking out for from you and your channel?
I've actually sometimes, like during this conversation, I've been working on a shopping list presentation. So the final Destiny 2 end game shopping list. I've actually literally been working on this while we've been talking. Nice. So I've been doing that, and hopefully that video will be out tomorrow. Or I guess by the time people see this, maybe it'll already be out. And then I have some other stuff. I'm working on the damage rotation ranking, of course, but that's going to come a little bit later. There's going to be an overall endgame damage meta update video, which will just talk about what has changed in the meta, like abilities and ability testing, stuff like that, because that hasn't really been covered by any creator, I think, for the most part. Like, how much more does Blade Barrage do now, or like, stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm excited to do some more ability testing. And then, we're going to do some speedrunning stuff. I think toward maybe about a month or 2 from now, I'm going to kind of wind down video production for the most part. And then I'm going to turn my focus more towards speedrunning, because that's more like my hobby. Because the communities, I've neglected it a little bit recently. So I would like to, turn my attention more towards that, and hopefully try to get some more people into speedrunning, because it's end of service. So, it's good for speedrunning potentially. So hopefully that'll go well. And, I really, appreciate you having me on, of course. And I think I was one of your earlier content creator interviews, and it's been great, seeing you, reach out to all these big names, and, covered a crazy, diversity of topics as well. Yeah, and, I've had interviews with, a couple of people, or a couple other creators, a couple other people, over the last couple of years. And I would say you're handily most prepared, most respectful. You really know how to handle the show. So it's no surprise
Sure.
that you've kind of gotten the attention that you deserve.
Well, man, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's I told people, interestingly enough, and I think it's probably because I'm on camera for the entire podcast instead of my main channel. But like the fans that I met at GCX, they were like, "Oh my god, I love your podcast." I'm like, "What about the main channel?" They're like, "I didn't even know you had a different channel." I'm like, "That's fair enough."
Yeah,
and it's one of those things because I make a lot of like new and returning players. They're probably not coming out to GCX, right? They're new players getting out and doing that. And it makes a lot of sense, but it's funny because when I talk with them about it, they're like, how'd you get Aegis? How'd you get Dado? How'd you get these things? And I remember the specific day of talking to my wife, and she asked me after I had a couple people on, she's like, well, who do you want to have on? Like, who is it? And I literally said Aegis. And then I was thinking at the time that I said it, like at the time I said your name, it was like, I was like, oh, well, like I need like another month to do this or whatever. And then I think I just got like the gumption up. Excuse me. I got like the gumption up to be like, I'm just going to shoot him a message. Because you have in your Discord thing, like, hey, like you can ask me stuff.
That's why it's there.
Whatever.
That's why it's there. Exactly.
And so I was like, when I saw that, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go ahead, sent the message. And literally all I got was sure. And I'm like, fuck, I had worked that up way higher.
I'm just a guy, bro. I'm just a guy.
I know, dude. But like, it's just one of these things that obviously that's the crux of the show is trying to reveal that and do that. So like, even the people that I've reached out to, that I got to meet in person at GCX that had said, hey, I'm not interested in being on the podcast. It's still just one of these things where it's like, I just feel like my superpower with this show has been being shameless in my approach. Just shoot the shot, be cool with people saying no. And if they say no, understand it's not a personal thing. We got a lot of things going on. And so like people have asked me to do stuff and I'm like, I would love to, if we don't have a baby, don't have this. So anyways, I appreciate you making time, being flexible to kind of work around my crazy schedule, which has been a hindrance at times with everyone. And I appreciate you guys at home. I appreciate you guys for continuing to listen. And again, if you want to support the show directly, you can do that by becoming a member here on YouTube, do all the positive things on the different platforms. And it really helps out. We're trying to expand, trying to really round out, get a well-rounded cast of final episodes here around Destiny. So if you have suggestions for people you want to talk to, make sure to leave them in the comments below. And for Aegis, I'm Sax. Be blessed, y'all.